You're watching Newsfeed AM. Let's pick up on the markets now. The local index expected to contend with higher global sentiment, while investor focus is still on the war on Ukraine and the prospects of further sanctions against Russia. Now, the White House has accused Russia of war crimes, and there are expectations that the West will soon move to tighten the screws on Moscow. Carmen Mpelwane, portfolio manager at Absa Asset Management, joining us now to talk us through the latest market developments and some company news. Carmen, good morning to you. Give us an overview of how the markets are performing in early trade, investors reacting to the announcement by government to lift the national state of disaster, no doubt.
Yeah, so we started the morning in negative territory, largely driven by the resources sector as well as retailers. Banks seem to be the only sector in the green at the opening. It appears it's more of a risk-off. I assume it's on the back of the negative news coming from the US, as you've mentioned, concern around war crimes that were brought up yesterday. So yeah, it looks to be a bit of a tough day today.
Yeah. And the morning trade, Carmen, let's talk about Brent crude oil rising to $108 per barrel, having climbed over 3% on Monday. What sentiment is driving these moves?
Yeah, so volatility continues in the oil price. We saw on the back of OPEC's meeting last week, they were remaining sort of level in terms of their guidance for May and looking at an increase of 432,000 barrels per day. As I've mentioned before, there's been lots of concern around even OPEC reaching that level. They haven't been able to reach their targets or their guidance for a few months, going back to last year. And so on the back of the announcement that there may be further sanctions against Russia, this would mean that we'd see about 650,000 barrels per day, which would normally come from Russia looking for a new home. Keeping in mind that the US and Europe have cautioned China against taking up any Russian oil, has given some tailwind to the oil price today, back up as you've mentioned, and likely to stay there until we get a direction from the US and Europe.
Let's talk a bit about company news. Woolworths, the share price performing better than expected on Monday, rallying more than 4%. What sparked this surge, and how is the share price looking this morning?
So there was a report that a US publication came out with information that Woolworths is in discussion with investment banks in regards to the sale of its David Jones enterprise in Australia. I think the market's been waiting for this for quite a while. It's viewed as an unlock of value. Currently, most analysts value David Jones in negative territory. We have seen significant losses and write-downs from the group as well over the last few years since they acquired David Jones. The lockdown or the pandemic also didn't yield well for David Jones. So we've seen a lot of negative territory around that. And so this news came as a positive. However, keeping in mind that Woolworths has come out with no statement in regards to this potential rumor. But where there is smoke, there's probably fire. And as we can see, the market would appreciate an unlock of that.
Yeah. Let's conclude the conversation with the JSE announcing that it will soon amend its listing requirements. This is to enable the listing of actively managed exchange-traded funds. You're going to explain what that is to us and, importantly, what this will entail.
Yes, so it's not that we don't have ETFs to trade in on the JSE at the moment. We do, but those are more index tracking and what we call passive funds. So not an active investment decision that's being made, but instead just tracking an index. So this adds another nuance to the ETF stable, where the active funds will be listed. And this allows investors a better form of diversification for one, and more alignment with what's happening globally. We've seen a significant demand for this offshore, and this is likely to feed into the JSE as well. It is a proposed amendment, and the JSE has asked for commentary, so we'll wait and see what the outcome is on that.
Carmen Mpelwane, thank you very much for that markets update. She is Portfolio Manager at Absa Asset Management. Let's